Hello, Jacksonites. Oh, dear.
This is going to be a fun one. I got my Nerve guest pass just for this video.
Welcome to a first for my channel where I will be reviewing an anime. Oh, dear. So, anime is a genre that is very unique in and of itself. I believe I have stated before, I'm not a huge anime fan. The amount of anime shows that I own, I can barely count on two hands. I own the original Mazinger Z. I own Great Mazinger, Combattler V, Guyver Bio Booster Armor, Mazin Kaiser, the original Devilman, and now today's show. So yeah, two hands. Shawnee Boy, and joining me, of course, today is Shawnee Boy from JTISREBORN. How are you with anime and how much you like it, or maybe?
I really enjoy anime. My first experience with anime comes back to when I used to watch Toonami back in the day on Cartoon
Network.
Mine
too, of course.
Dragon Ball Z was what really got me into it. I mean, I am a major Dragon Ball fan. I own the original Dragon Ball, all Dragon Ball Z, all Dragon Ball GT, all Dragon Ball Super, and all of the movies. I even own the shitty live action Dragon Ball Evolution because I love, and like a bunch of video games too. So that was my initial exposure, and I watched other shows on there. Yu Yu Hakusho was another show that I liked quite a bit, which now Netflix just released the first image of like their live action series. I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be fun. And I've been making it a quest more recently to watch a lot more anime films, like trying to go through all the Studio Ghibli films because there's a lot of great quality anime films there. Really kind of like I like watching like things that aren't necessarily like shonen based. Really kind of like took off for me when I saw Your Name a few years ago, because then I was like, that movie kind of blew me away when I went to see that one in theaters. So like, wow, this is like really good. It kind of floored me. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go through and like kind of watch more like slice of life, just all sorts of different genres. And I've seen all different types of anime. As I'm sure you know, there was that one video on my channel where I reacted to that very adult anime, we'll say. I think I remember watching your reaction to it. that was quite a bold thing. But obviously YouTube took that video down.
The balls.
I really love anime. Like there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of weird stuff out there too. I've seen a lot of shonen based stuff, but now I've been kind of more leaning towards like I want to see some more slice of life type based anime, because I've seen so much great action stuff over the years. I kind of want something a little bit different. And speaking of different, that brings us to the anime that we have today. One of the most really out there animes in terms of like popularity. Like it's a very popular one for sure, but it's super bold and like it really like is one of the most iconic animes out there, but it certainly has some interesting creative choices that help it stand apart from so much stuff. I mean, in fact, we just got the recent Rebuild movies, which we're not going to be talking about. We're just talking about the original right here. But this is going to be a fascinating one to discuss because I can see it going either way.
Yeah, say the least. Yeah, I'm just on the other side of the spectrum. I have a mild interest in anime. I did, of course, grow up watching Toonami. I did watch some Dragon Ball Z.
Gundam Wing, by chance?
I watched a little bit of... No, I didn't even think it was Gundam Wing. I'm pretty sure it was a Gundam show, though, because I remember the Gundam robots were, like, super chibi, and I think they themselves were, like, they had minds of their own, and they would interact with humans.
There's a lot of Gundam shows out there.
I know there is. That's why I
mostly watched Gundam Wing was the one I remember watching those.
That franchise is very difficult to get through.
Right.
And there was another anime show that I oddly watched a lot. I can't remember.
Pokemon?
I watched a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I watched some Pokemon. Not really any Digimon, sadly, even though Digimon, I think, is probably my favorite of the three. Just not Digimon the movie. Oof.
That movie, the English version has, what is it, like bare naked ladies playing in it?
There was this one anime show. I can't remember what it's called. It had the hamsters. Was it Hamtaro?
It might be. I don't know. Like there's a lot of shows out there, and like if I don't know everything, like sometimes anime fans will be like, "How do you not know this? What is wrong with you?" and all that. Like
I'm
it's
just not a big fan. I quickly fell out of favor with Dragon Ball Z. Partially, a big reason for that was because the Dragon Ball Evolution movie was just awful, and it killed the franchise for me.
I've been in a Dragon Ball mood lately. The new movie is supposed to come out next month, middle of August or something like that. So I'll be checking that one out when it comes to IMAX. I'm really excited to see that one. Like, I mean, I love the shit out of Dragon Ball Z. The original Dragon Ball is like more like it's when you watch the original Dragon Ball after watching Z, it's very different in terms of like tone. It's way more comedic. And there's a lot of stuff that they do in that show that you're just like, oh sweet Jesus, they would not get away with that today. And then GT
Dragon
was
Ball, I know, is like one of the number one most popular anime shows of all time, and
Mhm.
I feel like so frustrated because there's parts of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z that I want to get into,
Mhm.
but the problem with those shows is they're so long.
But the filler is part of the fun.
I don't like the filler. You
I
can
like
snip out at least 120 episodes
watch
of
Dragon Ball
filler
Z
where
Kai. Then they cut out the
that
filler.
cuts out the violence though, so that's not
Fair
good
point.
either.
And you want to watch like when you watch it like with me with Dragon Ball Z, I like to watch it with the US score more than I do the Japanese score, except for like the intros. I like the intros because the US music like the Bruce Falconer score really adds to everything. Like I mean there's once like the end of the Cell saga is like one scene in particular where it's Cell is defeated and it's the most epic moment in the entire history of anime. Everybody can give all sorts of different moments to me. Like I can't think of anything that tops that in terms of epicness. I remember my friends and I, we were like waiting for we were watching the saga as it was airing on TV. Then when it got to that ending, the music and everything, it was the most insane thing I'd ever seen. Even watching it now, I still get goosebumps when that music pops up and everything. I'm like, this is like the coolest shit ever. So, but yeah, I'd like to.
Lately, however, in the last few months, I have been feeling the desire to broaden my anime horizons just a little bit. In no small thanks to the YouTuber Bennett the Sage from the show Anime Abandon. He has introduced me to a couple shows and anime films that I wouldn't mind checking out. I wouldn't mind checking out the original Ghost in the Shell.
Saw that. Well,
Um,
I saw the Scarlett Johansson movie. I
I
didn't
own
see the
that. I
original.
have to watch it soon.
Okay.
Uh, I would not mind checking out Yu Yu Hakusho. That looks like a fun series.
Yu Yu Hakusho is fucking awesome.
I would not mind checking out the movie Jinro. That looks like an interesting
Haven't
movie.
seen it. Akira is a pretty popular one too.
Akira, that needs to be a show, not a movie.
Right. Like it's an interesting movie. I didn't like love it, but like I still own it.
And
You
spoilers for an upcoming review. I will also be reviewing the OVA from the 90s called Genocyber.
mm-hmm.
Oh boy, that'll be an interesting one.
Right. Yu Yu
But
Hakusho,
one
I think you'd really like, Nick, because the main character, as my brother described him, is basically anime Ash Williams from like Evil Dead, in terms of personality. So Yusuke Urameshi, great, one of the best protagonists you'll ever see, at least in my opinion, because he's such an asshole at times, but like he's funny.
One other show that I have no clue why I decided to indulge. Partially because I've been on an Ultraman kick, and this show was inspired by Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, its creator has made that painfully obvious over the years. Thanks to the YouTuber Blue Nova, actually, that got me interested in watching this show a little bit. That will be today's subject. The 1995 highly controversial, highly critically acclaimed anime series, Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, goody. I got my nerve badge right here. And not only do I have my nerve badge, I have good, sweet. Fuck, this is heavy. The complete series of Neon Genesis Evangelion doesn't include the Rebirth movies, but this is just the original thing. It has both like versions of all the multiple dub versions out there. Let me just go ahead and open this thing up. Like motherfucker, this thing is heavy. So you open this beast up. You can see kind of in here, it's got all this stuff. Well, let's do a little unboxing thing. Oh, so it's got all these different cards right here. So you got Shinji, you got Rei, you got Asuka, Misato, Ritsuko, Mr. Kaji, Gendo Ikari, Kaoru. There's also, what else is in here? Oh, an ad for the movie Belle, which I did review on my channel when I saw that in theaters. What else do I got? All these. God, it's just so much stuff in here, Nick. All these different like cards and that. It just keeps going. There you go. Hang that up on your wall. There's. It just keeps going. Got more stuff in here. Oh wait, you like Misato? There's more. There's the Avas. Oh, here's more stuff here. But wait, there's more stuff here. Wait, there's more stuff here. Wait.
Hamtaro. That's the name of the hamster anime that I was talking about.
Yeah, there's more stuff there. But wait.
Thank you, honey.
Got this set right here. This is like the thing's got the updated version of the dubs right here. So these are all the discs because I know you have that complete set. So you got this. Does it have both versions on yours? The classic dub or just?
I think it's the new dub.
Okay, so this has the new dub in that set, and this one with Misato here and Kaji, and that has the classic dub. I need to check out the classic dub here. I've only seen like the new stuff, and then obviously my nerd badge came from that. We got this thing from the show. And then, lastly, there is a little booklet right here, which has a lot of interesting and cool stuff, like scripts and like concept art and like all sorts of stuff in there, kind of like a history of it and all. I have to go through and read it, but yeah, that's all that came on this big motherfucking set. So yeah, like I said, Neon Genesis Evangelion
is a very unique show. He has that. I just have the recently released 2022 Blu-ray set that was released. I bought this is fucking $45.
This is part of that. It's the same people who released that set.
Oh, okay.
So like this, just like I ordered this last year. I ordered it day one, and they sold out the same day. So
I just have the simplified version. I don't have any of that extra shit. I just have the new discs.
Right. I bought it because my friend was getting it. He's like, hey, look, you got to check this out. And like, I'm competitive sometimes in terms of like trying to get things sometimes with my friends. So I ordered it like right away, like same day. And it took like almost like I forget when this thing came in a few months ago. Because like it took a long time for this to get here. So but
Neon Genesis Evangelion is a Japanese mecha anime television series produced by Gainax, the studio Gainax, and animated by Tatsunoko, directed by the infamous Hideaki Anno, and broadcast on TV Tokyo October 1995 to March of 1996 with only a total of 26 episodes plus a movie. Evangelion is set 15 years after a worldwide cataclysm, particularly in the futuristic fortified city of Tokyo 3. The protagonist, named Shinji Ikari, a teenage boy who is recruited by his father, Gendo, to the shadowy organization called Nerve. Is it Nerve or Nerve?
I just say Nerve. Nerve is fine.
To pilot a giant biomechanical machine called an Evangelion into combat against beings known as angels. Neon Genesis Evangelion has been described as a deconstruction of the mecha genre, and it has featured archetypical imagery derived from Shinto cosmology, as well as heavy Jewish and Christian mythical traditions.
Especially in its imagery.
Oh, yes. Neon Genesis Evangelion. God, that fucking title just rolls right off your tongue.
Or as
Has
Robin Williams called it in 1 Hour Photo, Neon Genesis Evangelion.
received critical acclaim, but has also garnered massive controversy. Particularly controversial were the last 2 episodes of the show, as the ending was considered confusing and abstract. But in 1997, Hideaki Anno and Gainax released the feature film The End of Evangelion, which brought more context to the original ending of the series. A series of 4 films titled Rebuild of Evangelion, retelling the events of the series with different plot elements and a new ending, were released between the years of 2007 and 2021.
New ending's better, I'll say that.
The success of this show had led to a rebirth of the anime industry and has become a cultural icon. There are 3 groups of people when it comes to fame and likeness of the show Neon Genesis Evangelion. There are those that love it in group 1, who hail it as one of the greatest shows of all time, and certainly one of the greatest anime shows of all time. There are those that absolutely despise the show and spit bile at it and call it one of the worst anime shows of all time. And then there are those in the middle who either enjoy it or think it's okay, but they recognize that it has some problems, but they still think it's a decent series. I definitely fall into the hate it category. I'm not even going to remotely sugarcoat my opinion with this show. This series is a complete dumpster fire as far as I'm concerned. A term that I learned from Shawnee Boy, but I've never actually used. But it seems like this year on my YouTube channel is really a year of firsts, because, man, this show is just a clusterfuck. Shawnee Boy, which group do you fall into?
I guess you could say I fall into that middle group where I like the show. I certainly do, but I do acknowledge why some people wouldn't like it, and I acknowledge there are faults with it. So I'm not going to just blindly praise everything with it, because there is a bit of unsatisfactory in terms of some things that happened with the original series and the end of Evangelion. But it is one of those shows, like, there's a video I posted a few years ago after I just watched it. I'm just like, what did I just watch? Right, that was my reaction to watching End of Evangelion. And then I found myself, like, it was kind of weird because, like, I felt like so, like, weird. I was like, that's it, I'm done with it. And then I found out there's Rebuild movies, and I started checking those things out and waiting for the final film to come out, which I really liked the final film. I only watched it once, but I plan on, like, revisiting it because, like, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a show that I've actually revisited a few times. It's not that many episodes, all things considered. It's only 26, so you could realistically binge
but
it
it's
all.
a
Like,
tough sit.
Well, at times, but then, like, there's things where I kind of like certain aspects of it that I kind of like to revisit, or I just wish they explored a little bit more. I also, mind you, own a some of the manga. There's a one called, like, the Shinji Ikari Project, and it's kind of like, because at the very end of the last episode of the series, Shinji kind of wakes up into, like, a high school, like teen, like, silly reality kind of, where his mom's still alive, Asuka's around, and it's really kind of goofy, and it feels like a parody of, like, those, like, little high school dramas you'd see, or whatever. And it was kind of comedic. Like, there's a manga that's kind of, like, just set kind of in that timeline a bit, per se. And, like, even, like, Gendo's kind of, like, parodied a little bit. He's more, like, goofy, and it just makes it, like, way funnier, because if you watch the show, he is a stone cold bastard. But, like, it's so funny just to see how jarring of a difference it is. So I quite like Neon Genesis Evangelion, but I do acknowledge I have some issues with it for sure. But it's one of those series, like, after I watched it, it just kind of sat with me for a while. And then, like I said, I've kind of gone back and watched it a few times. And I see the influence clearly done in Shin Godzilla. They even reuse some of the same music.
Oh, damn.
Right. And, like, it's a series. It's not a forgettable series. So it's something that you're not going to forget. And in today's day and age, where a lot of things just are generic and forgettable, I at least commend it for being something that kind of sticks with you. And that's probably one of the reasons it's had so much longevity to it. and like I said, there's definitely some good aspects to it for sure. I think even like detractors can acknowledge like some good things to it. I'm sure you have at least some pros, Nick. But
Some,
some
but
like yeah, like I said, and then of course the rebuild movies came out, which even then like some fans don't like them because it's not quite like the show. It's actually a lot easier to kind of get into. It's more simplified. It still has some crazy stuff, but I think it's just like if you're not as into the show, I think you have there's a higher chance you might like the less abstract and weirdness of like the newer stuff. But even then, like there's things like I pick up on each time I kind of go through and visit it. Like it's weird because like there's a huge tonal shift in the series, kind of like episode like post episode 15 and that where it's like okay, if it kind of I think where the big like controversy and like really where people kind of change their opinions is kind of like the midway point. I can't pinpoint the episode, but where it kind of like changes from being kind of a little bit like easier to follow, then it goes like weird and abstract towards the end
I
to where
think
like
it is after episode 15.
yeah,
That
because
is
episode
around when it
15, if I
changes.
remember, that's the one where Asuka like tries to put a move on Shinji, like in like you can see that they both have their real insecurities. They can't open up to people because they're so goddamn miserable. Um,
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
right,
So,
right. I'm just saying that's where the tone shift. But if you want to know history of it for me in the show, Nick, I watched it a few years ago because I'd always heard things about it and I'd seen people talk about it for years and years. Then it finally came to Netflix, and that's when I finally sat down and watched it. So
for me, I'd heard of Neon Genesis Evangelion, especially when Shin Godzilla was coming out, was when I learned, oh, the same guy that worked on that show is working on Godzilla. Now, at the time, I didn't know what Neon Genesis Evangelion was outside of the fact that it was a giant robot show. So I was thinking, okay, that's not so bad. If you come to work on Shin Godzilla, I guess I'm okay with that. Then I watched Shin Godzilla and I was wondering, oh, is Evangelion kind of like this?
and certainly is. There's a lot of discussing and just
But I never really had the desire to watch it. I'd seen a couple short reviews, but it wasn't until honestly earlier this year when I watched some deep dive reviews on Evangelion from both Blue Nova and Anime Abandon. And it raised a lot of red flags with me, but for whatever reason, it also sparked this curiosity inside me.
yep. You'll find yourself watching a lot of videos about Evangelion after watching it. Like I find myself in a deep dive watching discussion videos explaining the lore and like some of the complicated meanings of different things. It's a fun show to discuss. Like even if you're not too huge into it, like I think like even watching people talking about it is still interesting.
So I decided, you know what? There's a new release of this show coming out on Blu-ray. Why don't I just get it as a birthday present? So I did, along with Hannibal.
Oh, that's a great show.
Odd pairing. So
Well, you know what?
I
There's a lot of weird what the fuckery imagery and craziness in both those shows. So like they actually wouldn't be too bad as a double feature. Um, there's also a
so
bit of
I started watching the show around early May. And now after having seen the show, boy, I should have bought something else. I'm not a fan of this show. Not even gonna bury the lead or bury the hatchet. I'm not a fan. This is not my kind of anime. This is not my kind of show. I guess I kind of respect the fact that Hideaki Anno, he had a vision and he wanted to make his own thing and make this be memorable. Props to succeeding, but now
I
that I've seen Shin Godzilla and Neon Genesis Evangelion, I'm very concerned for Shin Kamen Rider and Shin Ultraman.
we'll see what they do with that. I'm not as into Ultraman or Common Rider as you are. I watched some of the original Ultraman, but that's really about all my experience with it. There's a lot like see the thing is when there's a show that's been on for so long and there's so many damn seasons, it's like how do I even catch up at this point?
Just
You can be
start at the
done.
beginning. But with all that being said, so I'm not going to go through, even though this is a 26 episode series,
We're just doing
I'm
a
not.
summary of it all, like just not like
There's a
episode by
summary
episode.
on the Wikipedia page that is a few paragraphs long, so I'm just going to read through that. But I am going to read through the plot of the end of Evangelion in its entirety. But the plot of Neon Genesis Evangelion in 2015, 15 years after a global cataclysm known as the Second Impact, teenager Shinji Ikari is summoned to the futuristic city of Tokyo 3 by his estranged father, Gendo Ikari,
Fuck Gendo
director of
Akari.
the.
Can I just say that right out the gate? I hate Gendo Akari. He's the most
Let's not
dislikable.
get ahead of ourselves.
I understand I'm supposed to dislike him, but man, what a piece of shit. Like, I mean, you just wanted to, like, rewatching it just made me so mad. I'm like, you're such an awful parent. It just infuriates me.
Before we begin, a word from our sponsor.
Do I have anything down here? No, I got nothing here in the fridge. No. This is my downstairs fridge. I don't keep drinks down here. Well, like with cups and that. So
Gendo Ikari, director of the special paramilitary force called NERV, Shinji witnesses United Nations forces battling an angel, one of a race of giant monstrous beings whose awakening was foretold by the Dead Sea Scrolls. Because of the angel's near impenetrable force fields, known as AT fields, NERV's giant Evangelion biomachines, synchronized to the nervous systems of their pilots and possessing their own force fields, are the only weapons capable of keeping the angels from annihilating humanity. NERV officer Misato Katsuragi escorts Shinji into the NERV complex beneath the city, where his father pressures him into piloting the Evangelion Unit 1 against the Angel. Without training, Shinji is quickly overwhelmed in the first fight, causing the Evangelion to go berserk and savagely kill the Angel on its own. Following hospitalization, Shinji moves in with Misato and settles into life in Tokyo 3. In his second fight, Shinji destroys an angel but runs away afterwards, distraught. Misato confronts Shinji and he decides to remain a pilot. The NERV crew and Shinji must then battle and defeat the remaining 14 angels to prevent the third impact, a global cataclysm that would destroy the entire world. Evangelion Unit 0 is repaired shortly afterward. Shinji tries to befriend its pilot, the mysterious, socially isolated teenage girl Rei Ayanami. With Rei's help, Shinji defeats another angel, and they are then joined by the pilot of Evangelion Unit 2, the multi-talented but very, very apt description, insufferable teenage Asuka Langley Soryu, who is a German Japanese American. Together, the three of them manage to defeat several angels, and as Shinji adjusts to his new role as a pilot, he gradually becomes more confident and self-assured. Not really.
no, he does in some bits. He kind of gets a little bit more confidence. Like he does well, and he gets a little cocky, and then he ends up kind of in that black void, the shadow realm, if you will, in that one episode.
Asuka moves in with Shinji, and they begin to develop confusing feelings for one another, kissing at her provocation. Kind of rapey there.
Yeah, it's interesting wording. But you can see, well, even then, like before that, like there's moments where she's kind of like when Shinji's sleeping down, she kind of like climbs in like next to him because she's like basically like her and Shinji are looking for like affection, but they're so afraid of it at the same time, and that's why they kind of push each other away. But anyways,
after being absorbed by an angel, Shinji breaks free thanks to the EVA unit acting on its own. He is later forced to fight an infected Evangelion Unit 3 and watches its pilot, his friend and classmate Toji Suzuhara become incapacitated and permanently disabled. Asuka loses her self-confidence following a defeat and spirals into a serious depression. This is worsened by her next fight against an angel which attacks her mind and forces her to relive her worst fears and childhood trauma, resulting in a complete mental breakdown and shutdown. In the next battle, Rei self-destructs Unit Zero and dies to save Shinji's life. Misato and Shinji visit the hospital where they find Rei alive, but claiming she is the third Rei. Misato forces scientist Ritsuko Akagi to reveal the dark secrets of Nerve, the Evengelion Boneyard, and the dummy plug system, which operates using clones of Rei, who was herself created with the DNA of Shinji's mother. This is when it gets weird.
This is when it gets very weird. You're like, oh man, these two would be kind of cute. You go, oh, sweet mercy, no.
This succession of events leaves Shinji emotionally scarred and alienated from the rest of the cast. Kaworu Nagisa replaces the catatonic Asuka as the pilot of Unit 2. Kaworu, who initially befriends Shinji and gains his trust, is in truth the final foretold angel Tabris. Kaworu fights Shinji, not really, then realizes that he must die if humanity is to survive and asks Shinji to kill him. Shinji hesitates, but eventually does so.
He hesitates all right.
The event makes Shinji overridden with guilt. After the final angel is defeated, Zila, the mysterious cabal overseeing the events of the series, triggers the Human Instrumentality Project, a forced evolution of humanity in which the souls of all mankind are merged for benevolent purposes, believing that if unified, humanity could finally overcome the loneliness and alienation that has eternally plagued mankind. Shinji's soul grapples with the reason for his existence and reaches an epiphany that he needs others to thrive, enabling him to destroy the wall of negative emotions that torment him and reunite with the others who congratulate him.
Just recreating the weird ending there.
Moving on to the end of Evangelion film.
Should also mention too that there's also Death and Rebirth, which is just kind of like a clip
show. It's a clip show, so there's
right,
nothing really to say.
Right, just wanted to mention that. So
okay, so in 1997, the end of Evangelion was released, which is a retelling of the last two episodes. It really could just be seen as a
alternative ending.
That too, but also it's a 2-episode OVA because it's made up of 2 45-minute episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So teenager Shinji Ikari is the pilot of Evangelion Unit 1, one of several giant cyborgs that are designed to fight hostile supernatural entities called angels. Shinji is distraught over the death of his friend Kaoru Nagisa, who had revealed himself as an angel in human form, and visits fellow pilot Asuka Langley Soryu in a hospital where she lies comatose. Trying to shake her... I can't even fucking believe I'm going to read this out loud.
This is one of those things like, why did you even put this in here? It's not necessary. Trying to shake her awake, he accidentally reveals her chest and masturbates in front of her, chastising himself afterwards. Why does that need to be in there? God. Why didn't you see it over his hands? Like he just like the man just schmeated his meat in the hospital. Who does that? Why was
what
that
the fuck, Hideaki Anno?
Look, okay, like Jesus, like why do we need that? I mean, the memes about it are funny, but it's just like, why? Why do we need to have him schmeat his meat over her like that? To show that he wants her? Yeah, it's pretty obvious if you watch the show. The two of them are like clearly
they want to fuck, but
yeah,
they're
maybe they kind of did. Maybe they kind of did. in some of the weird dreamlike or whatever states, but it's clear they have feelings for each other, but he's too much of a shut off, very insecure, whereas Asuka like puts on a large front with her personality at all times because
he's very introverted, whereas
she's
she is extremely extroverted.
right, but
The
like that's
secretive
like
committee called Zila has been planning to initiate an event called the Third Impact, which will wipe out life on Earth and achieve human instrumentality, essentially the singularity.
yep, everyone turns into
Zila
orange Fanta.
discovers, huh?
Everyone turns into orange Fanta.
Sela discovers Shinji's father, Gendo Ikari,
Piece of
intends to
shit.
use Nerve to create his version of the Third Impact to reunite with his deceased wife, whose soul resides in Ava Unit 1. Zila dispatches the Japanese Strategic Self-Defense Force to seize control of Nerve, killing most of the staff. Nerve Major Misato Katsuragi orders Asuka to be moved to Eva Unit 2 and placed at the bottom of a lake, then rescues Shinji from Self-Defense Force troops. Misato, who wants Shinji to defend Nerve, takes him to Unit 1's bay doors, but she is shot in the process. Before her death, Misato implores Shinji to pilot Eva Unit 1, forces herself onto him in statutory rape, and forces him into an elevator. Shinji discovers
He kisses him
Unit
too.
1.
We'll show you the rest. She kisses him too. We'll show you the rest. That's what we call a grown-up kiss. We'll do the rest when you get back.
You know he's a minor, right?
Well, it's Japan, so I think the age
Regardless.
sets differently. But you know, I will say this though: like the memes about it have been pretty funny. Like you have like ones where Chris Hansen shows up at Misato's apartment afterwards or something.
Shinji discovers Unit 1 is immobilized in bakelite, essentially solidified plastic. Gendo retrieves Evangelion pilot Rei Ayanami, who carries the soul of the angel Lilith. Gendo has had the angel Adam surgically implanted in his right hand. If he merges Adam and Lilith, it will begin the Third Impact. Attempting to stop him, Nerve scientist Ritsuko Akagi sends a computer command to destroy Nerve. Casper, a computer core modeled on Ritsuko's mother, overrides her command and Gendo kills her.
Fuck you, Gendo.
Inside Unit 2, Asuka overcomes her trauma and reactivates the unit. She destroys the self-defense forces, but Zila's new mass-produced Evangelion units arrive. Asuka defeats the EVA units before Unit 2 runs out of power, after which the EVA units reanimate and then disembowel her and Unit 2. Unit 1 breaks free of the bakelite and ascends above Nerve headquarters. Above ground, Shinji sees Zila's units carrying the mutilated remains of Unit 2 and suffers a complete mental breakdown, screaming in horrified revulsion. Meanwhile, Rei's body is losing structural integrity, so Gendo can merge Adam with Rei simply by grabbing her boob and forcing it into her chest. Rei betrays Gendo by severing his hand, taking Adam for herself and merging with Lilith, who changes into a gigantic white version of Rei, probably the biggest pair of tits you'll ever see. The mass-produced units pull Unit 1 into the sky and crucify it, beginning the ritual to start the Third Impact. After 30 minutes of incomprehensible live-action and animated footage, including fighting with and strangling Asuka, who refuses his pleas for help and understanding, Shinji concludes that he is alone and everyone in the world, including himself, should die. Lilith responds by dissolving every human on the face of the earth into orange Fanta and reforming their souls into a single consciousness. After more contemplation and even more incomprehensible live action and animated footage, Shinji is disillusioned by the hollowness of things and rejects his new state, realizing life without experience pain as well as joy. Or life is about experiencing pain and joy. Shinji's rejection causes the destruction of Lilith, and humanity is set free. Yui tells Shinji anyone can return if they have the will to, and they bid farewell. Shinji rematerializes in an apocalyptic landscape as Lilith's head falls apart. In a scene that is very reminiscent of Devilman Crybaby and even the live-action Devilman film, Shinji is asleep on a shoreline and is startled by Asuka. Shinji begins to strangle her, but when she caresses his face, he stops and breaks down bawling. As Shinji cries, Asuka is disgusted, ending the series on a very unsatisfactory, bleak, downer piece of shit of a finale.
What a fucking troll! Like, I mean, you know what? I have to commend them for the ending, because they're just like, oh, you want happiness? Well, fuck you.
Well, fuck you back.
Yeah, I mean that this is a downright miserable ending, but it's like I have to laugh at it because it's so miserable. Everyone is just so miserable the whole movie, and it just ends like you're all just gonna fucking die and turn into orange Fanta, with the song playing like Kamsus or Todd, which is a pretty good song, by the way. It all returns to nothing. It just keeps letting me down, letting me down, letting me down.
All right. Pros. I have 6 pros, surprisingly.
I think I have like I said, I try to write stuff down, but it's like some things just kind of overlap a bit. I kind of wrote down.
Excuse me.
Okay, so like I said, end of Evangelion and the series as a whole. I guess you normally talk about like what do you think of the plot of it, and there's a lot I like, and then there's just so much what the fuck did I just watch, to the point where it's like it kind of takes you out of it. With the plot of Neon Genesis Evangelion, like it took me like a few times to really kind of grasp a lot of what's going on. Even then, like I still forget things because it's not necessarily easy to follow. But I guess we'll go ahead and get into pros first off. Between just the original series as a whole, including End of Evangelion. You want me to start with first pro?
Yeah, go ahead, because I only have 6 pros.
Okay,
so I'm just gonna breeze through them kind of quick.
Okay, because there's so much to talk about with the show. But anyway, so pro number 1 for me is the action. You can see the influence with the action showcased in Shin Godzilla even 2 later on in some of his other work, but I think the action is quite good when it's actually happening. There's some creative stuff. My favorite action scene in the whole series is where Asuka and Shinji learn to be synchronized with one another. It's like a solid minute long, and they're doing like all these kind of like crazy interpretive, like almost like a ballet performance where they're in complete unison and they're fighting the various angels and stuff, and like you get this beautiful imagery with some epic music kind of composed up against it. So yeah, like I said, like there's some good action bits in here sprinkled throughout the series where you get to see like the real violence and brutality of it all too, and like the action gets kind of creative too. Like there's times where they kind of like their little handguns.
I'll be right back. You keep talking. I'll just parental duties to take care of.
Okay, I'll just skim through my pros then. How about that?
Well, take your time because this will be a minute.
Okay. All right, so Nick has to go take care of his parental duties, so I guess I'll go into other pros. So like I said, the action is quite good. This is for him. But anyways, so the action is quite good. It's visually interesting. Pro number 2, I'm going to go with the animation itself, and like this kind of goes together with the action. The visuals, there's some very striking visual imagery sprinkled throughout the entire series of Neon Genesis Evangelion, including the End of Evangelion. Stuff that you are absolutely not going to forget. There's a lot of religious symbolism, obviously, with the whole Evas and the crucifixes and all sorts of various artistic stuff going on with it. The designs of the Eva units look really impressive. You get to see like kind of like that biomechanical thing. I also like that like kind of darker like animation style showcased in the 90s. I think it was drawn on like black paper or something, but there's just something about it that really kind of takes me back to that older time frame. It's not as crisp or clean. It's a little bit dirtier, a little bit grungier at times. So, like I said, the animation and visuals all look really, really good, especially for the time being. It's not as crisp and clean as today's stuff, but I kind of like that grittier, dirtier feel to it. And there's some images you're just not quite going to forget. Like there's some really striking stuff. Like there's shots of the Avas against like the sunset. Just some striking stuff that just kind of sit with you, and you can see where this was influencing like other genres like afterwards going forward. In fact, like there's that shot of the Ava unit up against like the backdrop of the sun, which you could see that Jordan Vaught Roberts clearly took inspiration for that when he was making Kong Skull Island with the shot of Kong and the sun in the background. So there's definitely some striking animation and stuff with that. So the character designs in that are all pretty good. Pro number 3 for me is the music. I really like the score of Evangelion. You get a bit of everything. The intro, Cruel Angel's Thesis, which I did try to learn on the keyboard. I used to be able to play it. I haven't done it in a while, so I have to like relearn it a bit. But I love Cruel Angel's Thesis. Like when I first watched the show, when it aired on Netflix, never skip the intro, because as soon as that intro pops up, it's like dun, 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 dun. Like, I mean, I love Cruel Angel's Thesis so much. Like, you can just be kind of sitting there when that ship like hits like plays. I'm like, I'm out of my seat, jumping. I'm listening to it. I'm rocking out to it. Like, I love the music, and then of course, the end of Evangelion has the infamous Kamsuser Todd, I think it's called. It all returns to nothing. Like it's such a like a downer song, but I really love the use of it. And they of course incorporate some classic music into the show too, as well. Like there's various Beethoven stuff, and it just really makes everything, like the grand visuals and actions, stand out a bit more at times. I also like some of the slice of life music where there's just kind of the characters just kind of sitting around in Misato's apartment. It's like do 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 do, and it's like it's good. Like I said, it fits the scenes quite well. So like I said, Pro 1 action, 2 animation visuals. Pro 3 was the music with Cruel Angel's Thesis and the various use of other songs and classical music incorporated into the show. I think the music is top notch throughout the entire series. There's no like tracks or anything that really stood out that was kind of negative to me. I've actually listened to the score before, and you can see that there's clearly some influence brought up into the series. So, okay, I'm getting a phone call right now, so I'll let you take over for a second. I did 3 pros.
Okay. Pro number 1, like any animation show, if the animation is good, then at least they got that right. So that is my first pro, is the animation. I do like it. It is very anime-esque, but thankfully, so one big thing of the modern anime industry is they always feel the need to massively beef up physical attributes. Chicks in anime always have to have big butts and big tits. And a lot of male protagonists in anime shows have to be super horn dogs, super masculine, and super athletic and ripped and shit. Thankfully, that's not here. But the animation is still very anime-esque. But thankfully, all of those elements are toned down quite a bit, except for the sex. More on that later. But the animation is good. It's crisp when it is crisp. It's clean, especially with the new Blu-ray set. It's very, it looks very HD and it looks very pretty. This will lead me into my second pro, is that it is very colorful. There's lots of bright oranges and greens and blues and reds all throughout the show. Yep. So it's a very pretty show to look at. All the explosions throughout the show are very bright yellow and orange, and they're
visually striking. Like I said, I did my first 3 pros of it, which was action, and then 2 was animation and visuals, and 3 was the music. So, and like you said, with the colors in that too, you could see some of the striking imagery that clearly influenced other things afterwards. Like remember Kong Skull, Shin Godzilla, even Kong Skull Island, the shot of Kong, like my favorite shot in the movie where Kong's like up against the sunset. That's taken right out of Evangelion with the Ava unit walking up against the red sun behind it. So,
or when the Ava unit's up in the air with its arms outstretched against the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of striking stuff that kind of sticks there. So,
and my third pro is
even the action,
the music.
Yep, There you go. Also, one thing I didn't mention with the action too, that whole like the fight at sea, you can see that clearly influenced the sea battle in Godzilla versus Kong too, with Asuka
Yeah, I can
jumping
see
from
that too.
aircraft carrier. Yep. So like I said, a lot of stuff that kind of carried over into other things.
So, yeah, the music, the opening theme song, which what's it called again?
Cruel Angel's Thesis.
I do like it. It's a very catchy theme. It sounds a lot like an Ultraman theme song, which I like. It's got good lyrics. It's got good music. It's very catchy. So it's a good
very,
song.
very catchy and sticks with you. There's English, people have done like English versions of it too, and I've listened to those as well. And those are pretty good, like covers of it too. But that main kind of like instrumental core to it is very memorable.
And the rest of the score throughout the show, it's a good mix of being whimsical and fantastical and gloomy and apocalyptic, but also very cold, sterile, and militarized.
Oh, yes.
So it's a sorry, I was heard something. So overall, not much to say about the music, but it overall is very good. I have one minor complaint, and that the fact that there are some pretty repetitive tracks throughout the show, like that main military drum beat that plays. Yeah, that one.
Even using Shin Godzilla like
multiple times throughout the show, and by the 10th or 12th episode, that's when it gets really old.
Right, because it's not quite as good as something like a Cruel Angel's Thesis, which just was like, that's like such a banger track. I also like the slice of life stuff, as I like when you walked away for a second, like when they're at like, I think the theme was called Misato's theme, where it's just them just in the house, and it's like do do do, it's like the really pleasant music that plays. And then of course like the use of classical music is done pretty well.
That's
really
appreciated too, like Beethoven's Fifth.
Yeah, like Beethoven's Fifth, like it just makes it so much more memorable. But like I also kind of laugh at the bits, like where Asuka gets blinded by the light, and it's like I feel like John McClane's gonna pop up at some point in the show when I hear that Ode to Joy music.
My last three pros kind of all have to do with each other. What do you have left?
I have 4 through 8, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Number 4, I'm gonna go with the characters of Evangelion. I know you're not the hugest fan of them all, but to me they're all very interesting, and they all have their real distinct personalities to them.
Like, hang on. So why don't I just get through my last 3, and then you could talk about yours as a segue into my cons. It'll make sense, I promise. So my last 3 pros, it has a good premise. I like the angels, and I like the Evas. The premise itself is kind of unique. There's not really there's a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff, but it all looks like Mad Max. Whereas this show, it is a post-apocalyptic show, but it's a rare example of seeing the world in a post-apocalypse where humanity has recovered and recovered fairly well following a cataclysmic event. So I found that to be kind of refreshing, seeing, oh yeah, Earth suffered a major cataclysmic event, but even in the end, humanity was able to still flourish and evolve and adapt to its new surroundings. And the world still looks like a pretty comfortable place to live in. So this is kind of refreshing, seeing a post-apocalypse that's not drab and sad and depressing, and Terminator Salvation meets Mad Max.
No, it makes up for the Depression era with the
characters. Oh God! Don't even
sweet Jesus!
We'll talk about that.
I just want to give him a hug, like
or not con. The next pro number 5 is the Angels. I actually do like the Angels. They are very unique, very interesting, and very engaging species of monster. Right. If you want to, you can call them kaiju, or at least alien kaiju. And in that sense, they're very, very unique. Some of their designs are fairly basic, but still interesting. Like there's one angel that is just a long, purple glowing light worm. But
Yeah,
that's
there's a
from
lot
an
of
angel.
crazy designs of the angels. None of them are exactly the same, too. They all like, it's just
There's one angel that's also just a floating diamond, and yet it still
mhm.
manages to be threatening.
Right.
Uh,
You feel the
and then
stakes.
there's some other designs that are very abstract and weird, but they're still kind of unsettling.
Hmm.
The two that come to mind for myself, there's that one angel that has the razor sharp cloth arms
Hmm.
that cut through anything you can see. And there's a large variety to the angels' designs too, because there's one angel that is literally just a living techno organic virus.
Hmm.
So the angels are certainly pretty varied and they're very original and they do feel threatening and they got some good designs, they got some good powers. Overall, they make for an interesting antagonistic threat. So props.
Hmm.
And finally, the last pro number 6, is the Avas. I do like the designs of the Ava units. Um, Not real. Well, no, cyborgs have been done, especially in Japanese media, for a very
Hmm.
long time. But to take the concept of weaponizing a cybernetic alien monster to use as a weapon against other alien monsters, that in and of itself does sound kind of familiar, but how it's done here is pretty decent. I like the designs. Um, they're very distinctive giant robots.
Hmm.
I like their weapons. I like their attacks. I like I like the Avas. I think they're cool. Um, that's it. That's all the pros I have. So why don't you get through the rest of yours?
Okay. I mean, I guess I can add some other pros with the angels and Avas, but the next pro I have are the characters. I think the Evangelion has some of the more fascinating characters in all of anime. They're definitely like there's some things that you can see like kind of like you can see where a lot of the tropes kind of like carried off from them. Like for instance, like Asuka being the tsundere type, where like very loud, very like extroverted, but like kind of bitchy to like and troublesome to those around her, but really having a really dark, fucked up past that goes on without her. They all have their unique personalities and they really kind of stand out from each other. At least like the main characters with Misato, Asuka, Shinji, Rei, and then after that you'd have Gendo, who is just so dislikable. Like I hate Gendo Ikari. Like it's one of those. Like, you ever get like those villainous characters that you just like you're supposed to hate and you just despise with the passion? That's me and Gendo Ikari. I'm like, how can you be so cruel to your son like this? I mean, your son has gone through some severe trauma, and you're just such a shitty father. That's why it gets exciting when he gets to fight him in the rebuild movies, because I'm just like, you're just kind of waiting for that throughout the whole thing, and just kind of see Shinji kind of stand up to his shit. Like to me, that was like I was excited to watch that unfold. But you'll see that when you eventually watch the rebuild movies at some point,
Or
because
I can just look it up on YouTube, which I might just do
right, although you
if
need a
it's
little more
there.
context with it too. But like I said, Gendo Ikari is just an awful parent, beyond a shadow of a
Let's
doubt.
not
So,
get ahead of ourselves.
well, like I said, that's kind of part of the pro. You're supposed to dislike him, and so as a pro, to make me dislike this asshole, they did a really good job with it. Like they made him like a real shitbag. Like I said, I like all the characters. I like their complex relationships that they have, like Shinji and Asuka, and how they're kind of connected with one another. You do really feel for a lot of these people in this thing because they are such damaged individuals. Like really multi-layered too, like Shinji with like him and the stuff with his mom and all that, and how he just like had like a really shit hand dealt to him throughout life, and he just wants a bit like he does things because he just wants people to kind of show him like unconditional love, and I think that's something he's been looking for like his whole life, and his father sure as hell isn't going to give it to him. So he does things so he can get kind of praised, and he has to kind of learn self-love, and it's a bit of an interesting arc throughout like the series, him trying to like overcome his depression, and that's kind of where the original ending of it kind of comes into play. And then like End of Evangelion kind of does like the more dark, twisted version of it, but he kind of learns his lesson like a little too late. um so yeah, like I said, I like Shinji, I like Rei, I like Misato. Misato's pretty funny at times too. Kaji as well, Mr. Kaji, and Asuka. Like I said, there's something really kind of complicated about her. Like there's some sympathy for her. Like she's really bitchy, but she adds a nice bit of like personality to the show. She really kind of like brought a new like kind of like life to the series. I guess Hideaki Anno wanted to make her like the main character originally in the show because he sees a lot of himself in Asuka. Because like if you notice with the characters, they're kind of different reflections of Anno's personality from what I've read. Like Ray obviously there's some weird stuff with Ray. Like she's kind of like Ray's, you know, I think about like Ray and Asuka are definitely a little bit different in the rebuild stuff too. But yeah, so like I said, I like the characters. The next pro I have
real quick, I'm gonna discuss my one mixed element with this show, and that's the character of Misato. She's really the only character in this show that I don't absolutely despise. Spoilers, but just give me some.
Okay.
Give me a minute. I don't hate Misato, but I think she's very inconsistent. There's times when she feels like she wants to be the one person in Shinji's life that actually does give him unconditional love and actually wants to look after him and care for him and love him either as a son or something else, which she needs to wait until he's of age to do so.
She does make that joke when he moves in with her. It's like, oh, what do you think I'm going to put the moves on Misato? Needless to say, she does do it.
She kind of does.
Yep.
So there's times when she's likable and she has a very cute pet, Pen the penguin.
Pen, he's a pro. You can't not love Pen.
Well, what happens to him? He probably dies.
Pen is. What if Pen was like an angel like the whole time? I'm gonna just go with that theory.
That would have been funny. That would have actually been a good twist. But regardless,
I just thought of that now. Man, that actually would be a really good twist. Pen's secretly been an angel watching over them the whole time.
Maybe it could have been a defector angel. Anyway, so I'm
taking that into my live action Evangelion movie I'm going to make someday.
My problems with Misato is that there's other times when she's very snatchety, she's very unlikable, and she's very abrasive and off-putting. Like her demeanor towards a whole lot of people, even Shinji, when Shinji is not being a whiny little dick, there are times where she just unnecessarily just scolds him and treats him like total shit. And it just constantly flip-flops between that throughout the show, not just to Shinji, but to everybody else. There's times when she's fun and bubbly and sweet, and then there's others when she's really mean and off-putting and nasty, and it's really inconsistent.
It kind of happens with every character, though, if you notice in the show. Everyone, like, even when they start out uppity, like, the world just brings them all down into a state of misery. There's really and there's kind of like no overcoming that, unfortunately, for a lot of
them. And it's not fun.
Right. It certainly isn't fun to see. Like you almost kind of like want to see something kind of more upbeat, like by the end of it. That's why I like the dream state where it's like the high school AU type anime. And I'm like, I want a straight up comedy series of Evangelion set in that dream vision at the end of the series. I want something like that, like as like a full-blown anime. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Moving on. So the rest of your pros.
Okay,
that's all I have to say about Misato. She's very inconsistent. Okay.
So yeah, like I said, the next pro I had is the comedy. There's actually surprisingly a lot of funny like moments sprinkled in throughout the entire series of Evangelion. Like when it wants to be, it can actually be pretty funny. Asuka has some funny lines that she says and like moments kind of sprinkled in. Her first introduction, like it's kind of like a little out there where she just bitch slaps was like Suzuharu or whatever. That was, I thought that was pretty funny. Misato and Kaji, particularly Kaji, has some funny like one-liners and just the way he kind of acts around people. Like
that is another thing about Misato; she can be kind of funny,
right? Like her reactions to Kaji, like just how much she just like gets annoyed at him throughout it. Like there's some really funny stuff. Like when Kaji's putting on the moves to like this one chick, and then she's like, "Hey, look it over there," and you just see like Misato just give this face of like a demon, like looking through like the glass window. Like I thought that was pretty funny. The high school AU scene is one of the funniest. Is probably the funniest scene in the whole show. And there's different dubs of it too, Nick. Like the classic dub of it is way funnier because you're like, Misato shows up and they're like, "Whoa, Miss Misato, our teacher! God, she's so hot!" And like them all kind of freaking out over it. And then Ray comes in and like she's really upbeat and like happy in like the alternate version, and just the dubbed lines are like way funnier in that version. Like, oh, what and what's wrong with you, Asuka? You're riding his baloney pony. It's just some really stupid lines, but it's like played up to be. She literally says in the older like dub of it where she's like, "Oh, and who are you? Are you riding his baloney pony?" And it's so stupid, but
what the fuck?
It's what the fuck, but it's really, really funny. Pen moments with him, Shinji kind of interacting off with different people. Like his dynamic with Asuka at times is actually really funny when he sasses back to her. It's really satisfying to watch. Just kind of seeing them get into arguments. When Shinji kind of stands up for himself a bit, there's some funny bits. Or when Asuka just up and slaps somebody, like for like her eyes being a perv or something like that, and just like her dynamic with Shinji, like when they're trying to like synchronize with one another, like they're competing in different things, like just kind of like even brushing their teeth, they're just pissed off at each other. I like the bits like that. So that's the next pro. Another pro for me is the design of the show. I really like the designs of it's kind of like designs in like the Angels and Ava, and I'm kind of combining them into one thing. But the Avas are really cool. Like just the way it's kind of a unique take on it. It's kind of like the Pacific Rim drifting thing, but you're drifting with like robots over like angel exoskeletons and stuff. And you have to have like the kids. I'm still not fully sure why they have to be kids to be the pilots. I guess there's something about their emotional state where they're better easy to kind of connect with the angels as opposed to full-blown adults. Like that's like even watching the show again, I'm like, is that really ever fully explained why it has to be the kids as the pilots? No, it's not really, like, unless I'm missing it. I've been trying to figure that out, but we're just kind of supposed to roll with it. So I really like the designs of the Avas. Shinji has the coolest one with the purple one, and obviously that's the one that's appeared in various crossovers. Like there's the Shin Godzilla versus Evangelion ride and stuff, and you can watch the clips on YouTube. It's still kind of cool to see. I wish I could go to Japan and have experienced the ride. And the designs of the angels, they're all very unique threats. Like you never know what you're going to be up against with them. Unique designs, unique abilities, and they really feel intimidating whenever an angel pops up on screen. Like it feels really unwinnable. But they do find ways to kind of like get out of the situation. Although sometimes having too much of an unwinnable villain or threat just kind of takes you out of it. I feel like at times with a lot of series, like there has to be a way to win. Because if there's no way to win,
like the Grudge,
the
entire Grudge franchise feels very, what's it called? Unconnectable, because no matter what, even if characters live by the end, in the next movie, they always die.
Right, and like
the rules of the Grudge franchise is very simple.
I hate
the Grudge house, with villains. You die.
I hate cheapness with villains. That's like, but the Angels are at least still beatable in the series. Like they're tough, but you can still like take them down. So that's another pro. Next pro I have is the slice of life stuff, and this is kind of a genre of anime where it's just the characters. They're not really like my favorite scenes, honestly, in the show. Right, when it's just kind of the characters just kind of like live like doing in everyday life kind of situations, like them living at Misato's apartment, or them kind of experiencing like growing up and like their complicated feelings with one another. There's a lot of like the slice of life stuff where they're just kind of going out to dinner and stuff. Like I like moments like that in anime. Like I've come to find, like when I was younger, I was more into action based stuff, but now as I've kind of gotten older, like because I've seen so much great action sprinkled out throughout different series, I'm kind of more into like the character moments, like the slice of life stuff, or like when they're just like having dinner together, or they're just talking shit to one another, or Misato's just like drinking a ton of beer, getting drunk and intoxicated.
God damn, does she drink like a fish?
Holy shit! Like she is like a fish.
She's very cantankerous.
Right. She drinks so much damn beer, and like sometimes like seeing Shinji kind of like say the lines about it is like, God, she's annoying. Like stuff like that's just really fun, and like I like I said, I want an Evangelion series where it's just kind of set in like an alternate world, like they kind of teased at the end of this thing, where it's just some kind of like just as like a parody series. I think that could be a lot of fun. Attack on Titan has one, which is Attack on Titan Junior High, and that's really funny. I'd like something like that for Evangelion. The next pro, this is gonna be an interesting one, is the what the fuckery.
How many more you got? Because I really want to get into my cons.
Yes, I'm almost done right here. So it's like this is kind of one more left. So this is the what the fuckery, and what I mean by that is there's so much what the fuckery with the crazy ass imagery and stuff like that. It just sits with you. Like you are not going to forget some of the stuff that happens in this show. But in a way, I kind of like get a good kick out of it. Like just some of the crazy ass imagery and just some of the like insane concepts and like how everything kind of comes together in the show. So like just the weirdness, there's some creepiness to it. Like just like when raids and that, like when people are dying in End of Evangelion and those really creepy faces, I'm like, ugh, oh Jesus, like this is there's some genuinely like weird and creepy shit in this thing. And I guess my last pro is going to be the boldness of the show. Like it's how do I describe it? Like it doesn't go the way you'd necessarily expect based on how the show begins. Like it takes a drastic, weird, abstract turn unlike any show I'd ever seen at that point. At least in terms of anime. I think other things afterwards obviously probably took some influence from it. But it like even the end of Evangelion, as horribly mean-spirited as it is, I find it really funny nowadays because it's like, oh, you don't like my ending? Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a fucking ending just to say fuck you to the entire audience. And like, I got to commend for it. It's a big major troll. And I have some respect for it. And like, it's a very ballsy ending too, to just literally turn everybody into like, everyone dies horrifically and they turn into orange Fanta. It's such a like, my God, what did I just watch type thing that it definitely will stick with you. And like the song that they play when everyone's dying, I just laugh at it when I hear it. It all returns to nothing. It just keeps tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down. That's like my depression song. When I'm feeling down, I'll just play that song and then it puts me in a better mood. It makes me laugh. But yeah, so like I said, that's basically the pros in general. I still really like Evangelion and a lot of the stuff that it did for the genre and all that, and like just kind of some of the uniqueness to it. And it's a fun show to discuss. So there you go. Those are my pros in general. Go ahead and get to your cons, sir.
Hold on.
Okay.
So I have 6 pros and I have twice as many cons. I think this is the highest list of cons I've ever had for any movie or show. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gents. Con number 1. Shinji Ikari. God damn, is he such a bitch ass turd?
He's a kid. His father is the most awful human in existence.
You know what? I'm gonna kill many birds with one stone. Con number 1 is Shinji. Con number 2 is Asuka. Con number 3 is Gendo. Shinji is a whiny little angst-ridden teenager, and that's not fun to watch. Con number 2 is Asuka. She is a complete stuck-up, whiny, bratty, insufferable little bitch. And Gendo is one of the most despicable, unlikable, cold, stern, miserable bastards that I've ever seen in any movie or show. I know that the show makes it obvious that you're not supposed to like Shinji, you're not supposed to like Asuka, and you're really not supposed to like Gendo.
Gendo's the antagonist, so they
the
did their job.
I know he's the antagonist. I don't like watching miserable people be miserable people. I don't like watching shows about miserable people doing miserable things. It's not fun. This is why I don't like shows like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or... those are probably the 2 biggest examples. Sopranos and Breaking Bad. 2 shows, highly critically acclaimed shows, about watching miserable people do miserable things. It's not fun.
There's still some like fun to be had with this show, though. I will go against some of your points, but I understand your point, because, like I said, it'd be one thing if they fully overcame that by the end of it, like like actually like grew. You know what I'm saying? Like to be like less miserable by the end, because like I said, that's kind of what happens at least in the rebuild things with Shinji. Like they actually allow him to kind of overcome that misery, and it's really kind of like you feel good to kind of watch it finally like happen. But here it's like it kind of happens at the end, but it's like it comes at the sacrifice of like the story and of that. It just feels like we kind of like undercut everything and just kind of like I'm done working on this. It feels incomplete, and that's kind of one of my
Speaking
cons.
of being undercut, there's moments where this show feels cheap. Mainly in all the lingering shots. There are many times throughout this show where they will just linger on something. And they feel like an eternity. I'll just say it. There's two of the most infamous examples. There's one lingering shot where Rei and Asuka are inside an elevator, and it just lingers on them standing. Asuka hiccups 40 seconds into the shot, and then another 30 seconds later, then they move on to the next scene. And then probably the most famous of all is near the end of the series when Beethoven's Fifth is playing. Shinji is inside EVA Unit 1, and he's holding Karu in his hand, hesitating to kill him. For a solid minute and a half, it's just that shot.
I remember watching that, and I thought there was something wrong with my because I watched it on Netflix. I'm like, is there something wrong with the TV? Did it freeze up or something like that? But no, it goes on for like a minute. I'm like, it doesn't need to go on that long.
Why?
It'd be one thing if they cut to different things like close-ups or it's zoomed in or something like that, but it just like
For a solid minute and a half. Why?
Right. It just does
boring.
That. Yeah. So
the next one that I have is the rest of the cast are boring as shit. Nobody's really likable. Nobody is really important. Well, no, not important, but nobody's likable. Nobody's memorable. They're just here to simply fill out a human cast. They're either boring military personnel, boring politicians, or boring scientists. Shin Gojira!
Well, Shin Godzilla has like way weaker, less interesting characters sprinkled in throughout that movie than anything in this one. But yeah, I mean, you got the students too. Like you have like the one kid with glasses who wants to be an Ava pilot. I forget his name. He's friends with Toji, whose sister was crushed by injured during the Ava attack, and then he becomes an Ava. And man, God, like thinking about it too, like Shinji, like he really doesn't want to do this. He's doing it for acceptance and because like he's like kind of the only one who can. And he's doing it because he doesn't want to see others like Rei. Like when Rei gets like severely hurt, he's like, okay, fine, I'll pilot the fucking Ava. Or people are dying is like shit. He's like guilt ridden into doing this thing that he doesn't want to do. And that's like it's still kind of a sad. It's sad to see. Like I definitely do feel for Shinji in this thing because this kid has just had a shitty hand at life, and his dad is so awful. And either he pilots the Ava where he can get some bit of praise, or he doesn't, and people are just going to die, and he's going to get blamed for it. Like he just cannot win in any situation for it. And like I said,
that's not fun. That's not fun to watch at all.
It's not a fun thing to see, but like I feel like really bad for him, like as a character, because like even when he tries to do the right thing, something wrong just happens. It's like, God, how much more misery can we like subject this kid to? So how many pros or how many cons is that? I'll get through my cons when you're done, I guess.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Con number 6. I'm just gonna breeze through the rest of these because I don't have a whole lot to say about each one, but they just kind of coalesce, kind of like the Human Instrumentality Project. They just kind of coalesce into one giant thought. There's major tonal shifts all throughout the series. There's times when it wants to be fairly straightforward and fairly like a mix of being campy and serious. But then there's other times where it's very abstract and very wild and not serious at all, but then super serious and depressing and batshit crazy. It leads into the next con, especially in the second half of the series after episode 15. The story is damn near incomprehensible. I feel so disconnected to this show because the second half of the story is so hard to follow. I just cannot help but feel completely disengaged with the characters, the story, and whatever the hell's going on screen. Because Hideaki Anno was suffering a mental breakdown while making this show. He poured all that into the show, and it literally just looks like if a crazy man was to put all of his thoughts into a show, that's what I'm watching. It's damn near incomprehensible, and it's maddening.
Oh yeah, it's you can definitely see that this is made by somebody who's not in the right state of mind when making it. So
the next con is this is too realistic, in my opinion. I was going to say that this is, well, the realism aspects, it's like with Shin Godzilla. The EVA units don't have onboard weapons. They use essentially giant firearms that have a limited amount of ammo and knives. Now, that's a cool concept, and how it's showcased in the series is well done, and it feels plausible. Like, even the buildings in the cities have onboard turrets and cannons, and they have a limited amount of ammo. But the problem, like with Shin Gojira, it bends over backwards so far to feel realistic, it takes the fun factor out of it.
Right, and like the crazy instrumentality thing does not seem so realistic. It's kind of a weird blend of it. So,
this will lead me into the next con: lack of good action. There's scant few moments throughout this show, like the synchronicity fight that Sean was talking about earlier.
That's the action scene of the whole series.
That's a good scene, and during the battleship in the middle of the ocean fight, that's an entertaining scene. And when Asuka goes into the volcano to kill that one angel, that's also a good scene. But this will lead into the next con too, is that all of the fights are incredibly short and anticlimactic. This is an influence taken from Ultraman, but to a worse extreme. All of the fights are miserably short, miserably anticlimactic, and miserably underwhelming, that when the action scenes are on screen, they almost become engaging, but then they're cut short and you just feel completely underwhelmed and very dissatisfied. You just feel that's it. I want to watch giant robots fight giant alien angels. I don't want to watch these angst-ridden teenagers be fucking miserable bastards. The next con, oh God in heaven, all the cringy sex elements. Watching Shinji ride the meaty pony, whatever the hell it's called.
Are you riding his baloney pony? I'll send you like the because it's from the original dub of the ending of it where they're in the high school. Like Ray just goes, "Whoa, it's you! You're the one who was staring at my panties." Like, okay,
it's
look,
disgusting.
Right. Okay. When we were 13, 14, I'll be honest, like titties were on the mind a lot, but I don't need to see it.
Yeah. I don't need to see these angst-ridden teenagers live together and fight over their crazy, surgy, hormonal imbalance bullshit. It's cringy. It's uncomfortable. It's off-putting. and watching him beat his meat over a nearly unconscious teenager, Shinji is very unlikable and disgusting.
Yeah, that I don't know anybody who really defends that scene. Like some people are just trying to understand what they're trying to go for, but even then, it's like it's not needed. Somebody should have been like, look, Ano, this isn't needed. We get it. He wants to be with Asuka. It's clear. We've showcased that earlier in the season when he's laying down. Asuka comes to lay down next to him because Asuka has feelings for him and Shinji has feelings for her. And he's very close. She was awake even during that sequence too, and she even admits that because she wanted him to like put a move on her, kind of to like be affectionate to her per se, but he's just too insecure to do so. We don't need him to schmeed his meat. We know based on those scenes where he's really insecure about showing like affection in that regards, because obviously he hasn't like felt any real affection from another human being since his mom died, because his father's been so cold, because he's afraid of getting his heart broken like way more. It's clear, like he wants to be with Asuka, but he's too insecure to say something about it. Which everybody knows. Anybody's watching the show, you can tell that those two, if they're able to work out their issues and really kind of open up to one another, they could actually like work out quite well. But Asuka's too bitchy, and she's afraid because given her traumatic background, and Shinji is just too insecure. They're both fundamentally kind of the same person, like similar things. Like they're the only
also
two
completely opposite.
Right. They're fundamentally kind of the same, but also kind of the opposite. But they're the only two, and Asuka realizes this, that Shinji's the only one who can understand what she's going through. And like I said, that goes into the more complicated relationship aspect that I kind of like that the show explores. But we don't need to see him schmeed his meat and just look at his like jizz-filled hands. I'm like, that's an actual
gross.
The memes about it are funny, but like, my God, it's not needed. It's not needed at all. I'll get to that when I talk about my cons.
The final con that I have, the entirety of the end of Evangelion is just one big giant middle finger to the audience. I know that was the intent. Doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah, the commentary of it,
depressing. It's sad. It's frustrating. It has decent moments of action, like when Zila attacks Nerve. Those are fun action scenes. And when Asuka's taken on the mass-produced EVA units, that's a fun scene.
Right, and you're kind of like, oh, this is great. She's finally come to She's kind of come to life. She's like going to overcome all this stuff, and then it's just like, fuck.
Nope.
I feel like
we're going to disembowel this thing, and we're going to tear it to pieces, and then have the protagonist finally get over himself and unleash the true power of EVA Unit 1, and then suffer a mental breakdown and cause the end of the world.
It's so mean-spirited. It's such a troll. It's such a troll.
That's it. That's all 12 cons I have. I probably could have had more, but this video would be 9 hours long. So
okay, so let me get into my cons. Yeah, I'll go through really quickly. So con number one, the ending, no matter which one you go through, even if I enjoy some of the trolling aspects of it, there's not a fully satisfying ending to the original Neon Genesis Evangelion. The rebuild stuff has a pretty good one. Although I could have like done a few things differently, but like this one, the original ending of the show, it's so weird, abstract, and abrupt. It feels like we just completely ignored all the other plot points that were going on. It doesn't feel satisfying. Yes, Shinji's finally able to overcome some stuff in that version, and it's like, oh, he finally gets a little bit of a happier ending. It's like, but you just what about all the other plot points that were set up? It just felt like I kind of like lost what was going on. And then you have End of Evangelion, where it's so miserable, and it's like all that stuff, it's like all the shit that they've been through, they're not gonna like overcome it, and they're just gonna have to deal with shit like a shit hand at life. It's not fully satisfying in either regards. Like End of Evangelion, I think, is the stronger ending because it's like more bold and impactful.
At least it makes sense.
It makes more sense.
Has that going for it,
so it has that going for it.
Spirited.
It's very, very mean-spirited to the point where you're just like, I don't know. Like, I can see why some people like it because, like, it's got that really... It almost takes, like, such a weird art housey turn, like, turning to live action. I'm like, I feel like I'm in, like, some, like, weird person's psyche kind of like doing some of this stuff. So not a fully satisfying ending is my first con. Con number 2, and this is one that we kind of discussed earlier. It's hard to follow, especially in the second half, to the point where even like when I finished, I'm like, what is even going on at this point? Like when it makes the weird abstract turn, like I get lost in the second half of the series. First half is pretty, I mean, it's still got some tricky stuff to follow, but like you're able to follow what's going on really up to like post episode 15, 16. I feel like that's when it really takes like the turn, as we're talking about. It just gets hard to follow. And then half the time, like, what even is the plans? What's really going on here? And it's like, then you get to that weird abstract stuff. Like, how do we get to this point and all that? I don't know. It just, it gets a little tough to follow. It could have been something, it's not very clear cut, and it kind of loses the audience a bit in that regards. Con number 3 is the pacing issues of the series. We mentioned that earlier with those pause shots that go on for so freaking long that you're wondering, like, was there an error or something? It felt like they're like, okay, we got a still image here. Let's just leave some music on. That way we'll save time. We can get the 22-minute or 23 minute runtime of the episode. That's what those shots felt like. It didn't need to be that long. You could have had extra commercials or something or whatever. But yeah, like those shots that just kind of dragged on for so long, it's not needed to be like that. Just like this, it just goes on. It just pauses there. Yeah, there's some good music at times, but then you have like that other like one where he's at the train station. Is like, why does this need to be this long? It really drags the pacing to a halt. It's not needed. You could have trimmed it down by like 3/4 of it and you'd be fine. But no, we had to prolong it for so long to save money. And like I said, there's that kind of comes into the pace of the cheapness. Number 4 is the major tonal shifts are almost too jarring at times. From the first, it's really just kind of the first half to the second half. I like the first, more like kind of the first, really the first like 60 or 70% of Evangelion more than the final 30 to 40% of it. It's easier to follow. It kind of like, and yeah, I get the second half is really kind of bold and experimental. And that's one of the things that has helped the series stand out a little bit more. But when you're watching the series, it's like, how do we go from like episode 1 to the final episode? It took such a weird, drastic turn that it feels kind of like, I guess it feels in pace, but it feels kind of out of place. It doesn't fully feel right. It feels like something's kind of wrong here. The next con, the over-sexualization of kid characters.
Ugh.
Look,
Elf lead.
There's okay, kids having the hots for older people. Okay, when I was a teenager, yeah, I thought about a lot of that stuff. Obviously, that's what happens when you go through puberty. And yeah, that can be explored, but you can do it a little bit more creatively. I don't need to see Shinji schmeating his meat, or I don't need to see Rei naked more time than clothed with him in that. And like I said, there's some of it, like, yeah, I get teenagers go through that stuff. I mean, we were teenagers at one point a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And yeah, you're thinking of, when you're that age, let's be real. What's on the mind a lot? Titties. Lots and lots of titties. But I don't need to see Shinji schmeating.
I don't need to see it. It's
right.
great.
Right. It's like, I mean, it's bold that they're exploring that stuff, but like, and yeah, it's animation, but like still,
it's very off-putting.
It's very off-putting. It's not very comfortable to watch it. It could have done without it. Like, you could have toned back. You could have implied things more. Like, you could have framed shots in a way where you don't really see this with the underage characters, which in some instances they do kind of frame shots like that, where Shinji like is like, oh, Miss Misato, like Pen's there. He like lifts up the beer can. It's like the Austin Powers thing where they kind of like they could have done something like that. Yeah. It would have been a lot funnier. Like I said, that was kind of like one of the comedic moments of the show. So that just number 6. I don't know if this is the pro / con. Gendo Ikari is the worst parent ever.
Oh yeah.
Gendo Ikari, I guess it's the point you're supposed to hate him. Like, it's almost like it could be a pro and a con at the same time, because they do such a good job making me hate this shitbag that I want to spit on the screen.
That's not fun.
No, it's like, unless they get like the worst, most horrific, like, comeuppance ever. Like, there's two. This is one of the few characters that does this. Another example of this is Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter. The Fifth Order of the Phoenix. That really
they don't get satisfying comeuppance.
At least she, like, hers, like, I clapped when I saw that in the theater when she gets taken away. The other one is Mick Taylor from the Wolf Creek series. I have never hated like 3 characters more that you're supposed to dislike, as a like Gendo Ikari, I despise. like you're supposed to. Like, he's just such an awful parent, and he needs to be slapped in the face and beaten the shit out of him. Mick Taylor from Wolf Creek is another one.
But he
He's just
doesn't get a satisfying comeuppance.
right. I'm still waiting for that with Wolf Creek because I'm like, God damn it, this guy keeps getting away with it. It's pissing me off at this point.
Well,
it's like,
the show got canceled,
but they got another movie and that, so on the way.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, just kill the bastard. I've never want to see it. So that's that one. And then the final con, and this is a pretty big one that kind of like could have fixed a lot of issues with the show. It needed to be longer. It's very, and kind of like
better.
Right. It needed to be a lot longer. It needed a little bit more time to flesh things out. Maybe another like 5 to 10 more episodes to tell its story. Because, for instance, they bring in the character of Kaoru into like the last 3 episodes of the show, basically. And Shinji, like 2 episodes are like, it's too late to feel an emotional impact by the end of it, because Kaoru shows up at the very end. Yeah, he's the first person who's just kind of really decent to Shinji, and there's a little bit more going on between those two. Think Will and Stranger Things level stuff.
Oh dear. The reveal, though, that he's an angel, it kind of just comes out of nowhere, and it's not explored. You're like, oh, he's an angel. Wait, what?
That's what I mean.
What? Why?
Right. It needed more time with Kaoru, and it should have introduced him earlier into the series. The movies bring him in a little bit earlier, but the show needed more time with him. So then when Shinji has to make the decision, it would have felt more impactful per se. Like if they had maybe like a few, like 4 or 5 more episodes with him in it, like forming a bond with the team. And then you get that twist reveal of like, it would have been way more heartbreaking. It would have been way more tragic because you have somebody who's been unconditionally nice to Shinji. And then he just like is like, oh, by the way, Shinji, you have to kill me to save humanity. I'm going to torture you that way. So it's a bit much at the end there. And then the ending, you could have had more time to like fill out like plot points. Maybe the show just needed a quick break while Anno figured out himself a little bit more and then kind of came back to it rather than the rush production schedule and all that stuff. Obviously, like the rebuild stuff. The rebuild stuff took a really, really long time to get done. Like between the 3rd and 4th movie was like a decade wait. But like they finally got done, and like it feels like okay, it's time to kind of move on from that era of Evangelion. But yeah, like I said, it just needed more time to kind of tell its story. Yeah, 26 episodes, that's a lot of time to tell a story, but when you have so many plot points kind of going on with it, and you don't really reach a fully satisfying conclusion to really most of them.
And you don't have a director that wants to conclude all of them in a satisfactory manner.
Right. It takes that kind of is like the big issue with the original Neon Genesis Evangelion. There's a lot of great stuff in this show. There's a lot of stuff I really, really like, but there's still kind of like this, there's some griping issues that kind of hold it back from being like a 10 out of 10 show. As it stands, if I had to give a rating at this point in the video, I'm going to give Neon Genesis Evangelion an 8 out of 10.
Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of the worst shows I have ever seen in my entire life. I'd have no fucking idea why I bought this show. I almost regret it. I am glad that I have seen, it's like one of those what the fuck shows with a very depressing ending. That's not fun though. And this is definitively cemented my feelings towards anime shows. If it's anything like this, not even remotely interested. So I was originally going to give this a 3 out of 10. But I'm going to give this a 1.
10 out of 10.
A 1 out of 10.
Wow.
This is one of the worst shows I have ever seen in my entire life. It does have interesting elements to it. Had this been made by a more competent director, this probably would have been a lot better.
I'm very curious to know what you think of the rebuild stuff, because that's like more for people who didn't really like the original Evangelion as much, but it's still kind of connected in an interesting way when you watch the final movie. It's kind of strange. It's kind of almost like an alternative timeline in a way. Like I don't know. I'm very curious to see what you think of the newer stuff because it's paced better. The animation's a little bit more crisp, clean. It takes a different pathway by the end
I'll
of
have
it.
to wait until it gets not nearly as expensive. So,
Okay,
first time reviewing an anime, and it turns out to be one of the worst shows I've ever seen.
but it had me here, which made it all the more fun.
Sure. Go check out Shawnee Boy's channel. He's got some comic book reviews on the way, and I'm sure
Yep.
he's got some more after the movie videos on the way.
Yep, just saw a new anime movie the other day, which would have benefited from more time to tell its story. But like I said, I got more stuff on the way. I got to get back to work on some of the more written reviews and series and that I want to do. It's just like with the well, as Nick has known, like with us trying to like get together to do videos, sometimes schedules get kind of chaotic a bit sometimes.
Yeah,
And
no
like, but
kidding.
now, like I'm going to be starting a new job up next month, so I'm going to see how that's going to affect my schedule on a lot of things. I think it should make it a little bit easier going forward. But we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, like I said, Neon Genesis Evangelion, to kind of get my final thoughts on it. I still definitely really liked it. I can't in my heart give it more than an 8 at best because, like I said, there's some glaring issues with it. But it's a show that kind of sticks with you, and it's one that I'm fascinated by, like the world and all that. Like, there's a reason it has like a bit of a staying power because it's so.
Yes,
There's
but for all the wrong reasons, as far as I'm concerned.
right. It definitely has some problems for sure that we've gone into. I feel like quite a bit, and I can't praise it as the greatest thing in existence. I just can't. I can't lie like that. But I can't think of it as like the worst thing that's ever existed out of everything because I have seen way worse stuff. I have seen.
Oh, I have too,
but
but
like
this is still pretty bad.
right, and like I said, but it's a thing where I can fully understand people loving it or hating it. Like I said, I'm in that like middle group there where I'm just like, where some people are just like, how can you dislike it? I'm like, no, I can fully understand why somebody can't get into this series. Like it's one of those things like, okay, I can see why it can be very divisive in some ways, but I can see where it can be like really liked and I can see where it can get really disliked. But it is a show that I do enjoy discussing. It's like I said, there's a lot here that's good, then there's some things that are bad. But at the end of the day, it is something fun to talk about or like to kind of deep dive into various videos. So there's that going on here. And hopefully one day, Nick, if you're ever able to check out the Rebuild stuff, I think it's free on Amazon Prime to watch.
I don't have Amazon Prime.
Right, like I said. So I doubt you'll ever watch it. But I'm sure there's ways to watch it for free. Maybe even I think I've seen people like post the full movies on YouTube before. So like I said, if you're ever able to watch it, I would love to discuss the Rebuild movies. You can do them all in one video or 4 separate things. Like I said, it's one continuous story, a bit like the first Rebuild movie. Like I was rewatching it the other day. It's kind of like a bit of a remake of the first thing, but there's definitely some tweaks. It started out like, let's remake it into like a couple part movies. And then they were just like, oh, let's do kind of our own thing. You can kind of see that happen. Introduce you to something a little bit familiar and then kind of does its own thing with it. And like new characters kind of come in that weren't in the original series. It was basically just a fill-in for Anno's wife. Like one character comes in. And that's where things like take a big trajectory change with the series. So, but yeah, like I said, I did enjoy discussing this with you. We had a pretty good like hour, 40-minute discussion. Cause like I said, when you're talking about a series, there's so much to kind of just dive into with it. And, I'll watch it again at some point. Maybe I'll watch it with the classic dub, but I think next I'm going to kind of like finish revisiting the Rebuild series. Cause like I said, you got me wanting to discuss Evangelion and put me in a move to kind of check out the other stuff. So yeah, there's that.
Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Look forward to next week's episode. Go check out Shawnee Boy's channel. And as always, go out and watch a good anime show. Not this.
Watch it. I say watch it. It's if you haven't seen it, give it a watch because it is a fascinating one.
And I will see you guys in the next video.
Titties.